Welcome back to another episode of Life in the Sands podcast. We have Jake, Zach, and Kyle on the podcast today. We're excited to jump into some NBA and MLB content. MLB season's obviously getting rolling, and the NBA playoffs are underway. So, got a lot of exciting things to talk about. Remember to like and subscribe on whatever audio or streaming platform you're listening on. We appreciate everyone's listening and support. And with that, we'll jump right into Kyle going into some daily fantasy stuff. He's going to introduce kind of a new segment and then also talk a little bit about the articles are getting posted weekly now.
Yeah, so every week, well, currently not every week because I'm a bit busy with school, but mostly every week I will be post, especially in the summer, I will be posting daily fantasy lineup suggestions for you guys. These are often like guys that will be values and then like studs. So I'll post one guy who's like pretty low in price. If you guys don't know what daily fantasy is, basically you have a set salary cap and then you have to draft players using that to basically just like get stats for you. And those stats are points, and then higher points you win, more money you win, stuff like that. So, um, since I'm not writing an article this week, we decided to bring this into the podcast, and I'm going to read you guys a couple. A couple of them are studs. Most of them are values for the NBA and MLB because both are pretty lucrative, in my opinion, if you're doing it right. Anyway. So first, I'm looking at Pascal Siakam. He had a really good first game against the Bucks. He put up 36 and 13, and he had three stocks in that. You can get him for like 7,500, so he's not too expensive. Another guy is Zubac on the Clippers. He had a monster game. He had 20 points, 15 rebounds, and honestly, the Mavs just don't have anyone to stop him. And he's only going for 5,900, so that's a really good value there. Jonas Valanciunas, another big man who had a really dominant game. He's just bullying Chet the entire game, and they don't really have anyone on that roster to stop him. So, um, he put up 13, 20, and 2. And he's only going for 5,400, so that's a great value. And then this is gonna be a bit of PTSD for us Sixers fans here who just watched a loss, a brutal loss. Josh Hart. In the first game, he put up 22, 13, and 2. He shot 4 of 8 from three. This game that just happened, 21, 16, and 3, 4 stocks, 4, 7 from three. He's only going for 6,900. So you can get a lot there. And then moving on to MLB, Ranger Suarez, Phillies fan. He's been representing. He's got a 4-0 record, 1.36 ERA. He actually has 32 strikeouts in 5 starts, which has been improved this year. And then there's Tariq Skubal. He's a pitcher for the Lions, yes. He has a 1.82 ERA, 36 strikeouts in 5 starts. Very impressive. And then another Phillies guy, Alec Boehm. He's on a 6-game hit streak. He's batting 295. He has 3 home runs, 18 RBIs, just really good stats. And then Kerry Carpenter, also for the Lions. I just realized I put 2 Phillies and 2 Lions on here. I didn't even try that. He's a 310 average. He's on a 7-game win streak or hit streak. He's just been really consistent. So those are all guys that I would consider putting in your lineups. Obviously make sure they're healthy, but if they're playing, they're going to be good locks.
Yeah, I like a lot of the plays that you mentioned. However, there's one that I'm slightly concerned about, and
Mm.
I think you're going to rebuttal on this one just because of the size advantage. But I think you'll see Jonas Valanciunas play a lot less in that series because I think the Thunder will eventually speed up the game compared to the Pelicans slowing it down on him in game one. So I think there's going to be some ups and downs for Valanciunas, but I don't think it's a terrible play as is. Um, and
Mhm.
I'm also curious to see if Ranger Suarez keeps up what he's doing for the Phillies right now. I'm very proud of having him on the roster at this moment.
Mhm.
So I hope he can continue what he's doing.
Yeah. Um, Jonas, it is going to be a bit iffy. I just always liked him. And he hasn't been getting a ton of minutes this year, but I think they're really like taking advantage of that matchup. So that's why I thought if the trend continues anyway, that's a good play. And Ranger actually had another really good outing today. So
For
hopefully,
sure. And for what Valanciunas is worth as well, it might be worth the hit or miss
right.
there. So
Yeah.
Josh Hart still hurts a little bit, and
Yeah,
it seems like Kyle does have a predisposition to centers as well. Kyle likes the big guys
I
in
do.
fantasy, but
I like me, my big guys, man.
yeah. Quick reminder as well, this is not investment advice, and there's no guarantee of performance, and you can lose money sports betting. So don't gamble unless you are able to.
Right.
with that, we're going to jump into some MLB rapid fire. So we're going to ask Kyle some questions here, and we're going to give him a short time to respond. And if he takes too long, Bender's going to yell at him with fake obscenities. So we're going to ask Kyle 5 questions here. The first question, Kyle, we're going to jump right into it. Do you think this is the year that Juan Soto can win the MVP?
Ooh, MVP? No.
No.
I think there's just too many good players out there this year. I think there's going to be Mookie Betts has been tearing it up, so I think there's a good possibility for him. I think Mookie's going to be good. He's Mookie Betts, but I don't know MVP level quite.
That's fair. That's fair. All right. Are the Phillies finally catching their stride, and how deep do they go this year?
Yeah, I mean they've played bad teams recently. They're on a 7-game win streak, and most of those 7 wins have come against the White Sox, and another bad team I'm blanking on they just played. But they're good. They're looking good. Another big issue is going to be the bullpen. Their starting pitching has been amazing, like so good, but bullpen is going to be an issue like it is every year. So we'll see.
Yeah. How deep will the Dodgers go this year? They also beefed up a ton in the offseason.
Yeah, they've actually been disappointing me. Honestly, I don't know the record off the top of my head, but I think they're pretty close to 500 here. Dodgers record.
Yeah, they have
Um,
not put it all together yet.
yeah, they're 13-11. They're not doing good. So it's really disappointing seeing all the talent they have, and I think they're probably just finding rhythm. Like they did just skunk the Mets 10-0. And the Mets are playing decent this year, but I don't know. It doesn't seem like things are clicking there yet.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, let's pick between 2 teams now. Both the Orioles and the Diamondbacks made pretty deep runs last year. Which team is more likely to do it again this year?
Orioles are on fire. Their offense and I just the addition of Corbin Burns is kind of unfair, honestly. If I had to pick a favorite, it hurts me to say that as a Phillies fan, but if I had to pick a favorite for the World Series, I think I'd go Orioles right now. They're
Wow.
just their offensive, like they have a bunch of good weapons like Westberg. Obviously the new guy they called up, Holiday, hasn't been doing much, but Gunnar Henderson, Cedric Mullins, like all of them have been on fire to start the year. So if that keeps up, I don't know, man.
Yeah, they got a good squad there.
Mhm.
Going out to LA. Oh, go ahead, Bender.
I have a quick question in regards to the Dodgers. I'm going to throw in my own question here. Do you think their slow start has to do with all the drama that's going on over there?
No, I don't think so. I feel like that doesn't really impact anything, to be honest. I think it's
Okay.
just a bunch of I would almost compare it to like the Nets of like KD, Kyrie, and Harden. Like you have
Oh,
all
gotcha.
this, it's supposed to work on paper. Like you have some of the greatest of all time on one team, but it's just not.
Got to actually fit. Got to actually fit
Right.
chemistry and culture and all those kinds of things.
Mhm.
Speaking of Otani, too, he just left Mike Trout alone out there on the Angels. Do you think he's gonna be buried in an Angels uniform?
That's looking like the sad reality, maybe. Honestly, though, Angels have surprised a bit to start the year. They're not as bad as I thought they were going to be. So I don't know. I hope he gets out of there, and I hope he goes to the Phillies.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that would be Bender. Bender would like that.
Mhm.
And let's bring Bender back into the conversation a little bit more here. So we're gonna now transition to NBA rapid fire, and for this, we're gonna allow Bender and Kyle to both give answers, and I'm gonna pick whoever is gonna give the answer first as I ask the question. So here we are with the first question. Are you worried about the Thunder in the second round, assuming that they do make it there? That'd be the matchup with the Clippers and the Mavericks. And Bender, let's have you answer first here.
Yes, if the Clippers come out of that series, because the Clippers have a deep team and have some lockdown defenders to make it tough for Shea.
I'm honestly worried about them in the first round. I think it's going to go pretty deep. They barely beat the Pelicans at home game. Like it's a 1 versus 8 seed. That's supposed to be easy. And honestly, the Pelicans sold that game. If they just kind of stuck together at the end and didn't throw just like the Sixers did, they really would have stole game 1. So I don't know.
I'm also with Kyle on this one, especially if they can find a way to get Zion back in the middle of the
Right.
series. I think that would be crazy.
Yeah.
If Zion comes back, it's a completely different story.
Mhm.
Which team is most likely to blow up the roster if they lose in the first round? out of all the first round playoff teams? Kyle, you can go first on this one.
Did I say the Sixers? I think not completely blow up, but I think we get rid of Tobias. I think we get rid of a lot of the veterans. I think we kind of look like we're not really working toward a rebuild, but at least a partial rebuild. If we get first rounded, I think we got to look other places.
So you're saying if they get bounced in the first round, so there's a chance that they couldn't. With that being said, I'm going to say the Bucks because I think they would end up trading or getting rid of Middleton, as well as maybe Dame getting up out of there, just because he's not having a good time out there. I know he just had a good game one, but he has expressed the way he's felt about Milwaukee, quietly, nothing crazy, but still, it seems like he prefers a different destination.
And what's interesting is that it feels like there were so many pieces that moved around to go into this season, right? Like last offseason was kind of crazy, but now you're looking at a bunch of teams that don't have a lot of continuity. So now going into this offseason, like how likely is it that all of those cores that just kind of got formed actually stay together? Or are we going to see another big kind of like shakeup around the league?
Mm.
All right, which ball central or ball dominant player that's in the playoffs right now has the emptiest stats or like the least actual impact on the team relative to how big their numbers look? And Bender, I'll let you go first on this one.
Ooh.
Least impact as a ball handler.
Yeah, so think like your Shays, your Lucas, your Embiids, your Maxis, your Brunsons, your all of your ball dominant, like the engine, the your Jokic's, the offensive engine of teams. Which one is actually like the emptiest stats?
We going off the playoffs or just in general?
Playoffs, playoffs.
Because right now it's Jalen Brunson. Because all of the role players are the ones that are carrying that team through games one and two at this point between DiVincenzo, especially Josh Hart, and McBride had a 20-point game in game one. Brunson's been struggling. And I know he still is running that offense, but I don't think he just doesn't have anything going for him at this point compared to everyone else.
In my opinion, a winning offense is a good offense. So I'm going to go on the flip side and I'm going to say what Bender's too scared to say and say Joel Embiid because he's he's just been so inefficient like he is every year in the playoffs. He hasn't shown up. He looks like he's injured. Shocker, like he is every year. And I don't know. Sure, he'll put up stats, but it'll be on 12 of 30 shooting and it's just not going to be beneficial to the team. So I think yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can see the Embiid statement. I can also see the Brunson statement because Brunson has shot like sub 30% in the series so far on quite a lot of volume as well. So at least if you're going to take the volume, put up the stats with it, Jalen Brunson right now has the volume without the stats, which is not in the place you want to be. But if I was going to argue a player there, I might argue KD actually.
Mhm.
But going on to the next question, name two playoff teams that won't make the playoffs next year. Kyle, go
Ooh.
ahead.
Ooh. I'm gonna go Clippers because I think they're gonna lose Paul George, and I think they're gonna lose a lot of their role players. Um, so I think they could be like a fringe team, and then they're gonna get bumped in the play-in. And then another team, I'd probably say I don't want to say Pelicans because they're so young. I guess I'm gonna go. No, you know what? I'll go Heat. I'll go Heat.
Mm.
And which is very surprising because the Heat are always in the playoffs, it feels like. But I don't know. I just like this Jimmy Butler injury. He could not come back the same. I think they're gonna have some struggles getting their role players back. So I'm gonna go Heat and yeah.
You're making Bender twitch over there.
This is a hard
Yeah,
question.
it's a very hard question. I have an easy one for me, and it's because I think a certain guy is going to be traded this offseason. I'm going to say the Cavs. I think they're going to trade Donovan Mitchell this offseason,
Mm.
or Darius Garland, whichever one. Um, so I think they'll get bounced, and I think this is going to be a crazy one too. Um, I'm going to say the Lakers. I don't think AD is going to stay healthy for a whole other season like he did this season,
Mhm.
as well as the uncertainty of D'Lo sticking around.
That's true.
There's rumors of other people offer or other teams offering him contracts this offseason, such as the Orlando Magic, um, for example. And then on top of that, um, if rumors are true, LeBron may end up following his son to whatever team he gets drafted to.
Yep. All of those things could happen. And yeah, that was a hard question. Hopefully that was fun. We got one last question for rapid fire, and we're going to keep it easy. Finals prediction, just two teams. Don't have to pick a winner right now. You can if you want, but just two teams for the finals.
Benner, you got to go first.
Hey
have a
man,
coin
thanks
to
for putting the
flip.
pressure on.
Yeah,
You're
we'll try
welcome.
to
You're
Uh,
welcome.
but yeah, go ahead, Bender.
First team's going to be Denver. I think that's the easy choice. Um, the Eastern Conference is a little bit more difficult,
Is it?
but yeah, because if the Bucks can get Dame to play like this and get Giannis back healthy in time,
How many points did Dame have in the second half?
however, I'm still taking the Celtics. I'm still taking Nuggets Celtics, but I think the Celtics win that series.
All right, cool. Now, Kyle, you can't use any of the same teams. Go ahead.
Any of the same teams? Bro, I should have went first. I thought, can I say Celtic? Because I was locked into Celtics, and Bender was over here deliberating. Nah, okay, I'll go crazy. I'll go crazy. We'll say, oh man, I don't see anyone come out of the East besides the Celtics. If in a alternate universe where the Celtics, every single one of their players get injured, I'm gonna go Cavs. I'm gonna go Cavs, and I'm gonna go. And I can't say Thunder. I'm gonna go Cavs, T Wolves. Because if the T Wolves beat the Suns, I think they could really make a big like run with that. So.
All right, all right.
I can respect that.
But to
Those
be
are
clear, my normal prediction would be Celtics, Nuggets. But
yeah, but that's boring, and that was a lot cooler and more fun. So that's great.
yeah,
Moving on to the last segment of the episode, we're going to jump into another segment I think we've done once before. Bender's going to be the coach of an NBA playoff team, and he's going to have to devise a scheme on how he's going to attack the team. It's the matchup for this first round series. So the team that Bender is going to have to be the coach of is the Suns, and he's going to have to put together lineups, rotations, strategy, overall kind of tactics to take down the Timberwolves in a 7-game series. So go ahead and take the floor, Bender, and tell us how you lose the 7-game series to the Timberwolves.
Yeah, because I already know what you're going to say at the end of this. But no, I'm going to start with the substitutions. I will be having Royce O'Neal start over Grayson Allen just for the defense aspect and stuff him on Anthony Edwards. And then somebody who I thought should have got more time last game, who only got garbage minutes. I think Okogie should rotate in for Royce O'Neal, um, just to keep the defense on the court. You don't want your trio of Beal, Booker, and KD having to defend as much if you don't need to. Um, and now the other part of that is they can force mismatches, which you can see in my offense game plan here, like similar style, similar team um, game plans. But Grayson Allen and Eric Gordon would end up subbing in for Bradley Beal, Booker, and Durant, a guy that got time as well off the bench that I would not be bringing off the bench is Eubanks. They've been using Eubanks as a small ball five, basically. I don't think there's a need for that. I would not be subbing him in. I think you can end up throwing in a taller lineup if you play all those wings that I mentioned previously. I think you can just gang rebound and be fine on that end. Um, Either way, you're playing against two centers in the lineup, and you don't already have height to begin with, so you might as well force mismatches. On the defensive end, I'd be having O'Neal and Okogie rotating on Edwards, and KD will match up on him if they get in foul trouble, just to keep length on Edwards. Edwards is only 6'4", 6'5". KD's at least 6'11", maybe somewhere in there.
And that's
Um,
worked really well so far as KD guarding Anthony Edwards.
all right, buddy, chill out. Nurkic would just help in as normal, just because Gobert is going to play the dunker spot. Even if Gobert is the ball screener, I'm going to be having Devin Booker pinch off McDaniels because McDaniels is not exactly the most liable 3-point shooter at the moment. He's out there for defense more than anything. So I would rather have him beat us than Towns. If you wanted to pinch off Towns at all,
Or
which I don't think
Gobert,
is a good idea. Hmm?
dangerous for three.
Yeah, I would not be pinching off of him. That's why I'm going with the McDaniels option here. Um, and with that said, I'd also mix in some ball screen traps on Edwards if he ends up getting a ball screen from any one of those guys. Make him become a playmaker rather than a scorer. Just force the ball out of his hands. Um, and then KD, I'd rather just have Towns catch, and then whenever he puts the ball on the floor, KD's going to pressure. That's how I'd play him. Um, just because I don't think Towns is very comfortable putting the ball on the deck. So I think that ball pressure and length from KD would be good enough to kind of stall him out and force it to a Mike Conley or Nas Reed, whoever comes off the bench with them. Um, the only guy I didn't make a game plan for that had a very good game one for the Timberwolves was Alexander Walker, who is a walking bucket. So I would have to end up probably changing some things up if he gets hot, but he's very hot and cold and consistent. So we kind of see what happens in that scenario. Moving on to offense, I feel like it's very simple with how much talent we have. Now, Booker is not exactly doing the best because Anthony Edwards is a very good defender. The one guy that's going to get his throughout the series is Kevin Durant. So I'm not exactly worried about that. So if we need to ISO him, do whatever we got to do with that, that's fine. He'll just get his own points throughout the offense. However, I'm throwing Beal and Devin Booker in ball screen actions. I want Kevin Durant and Nurkic screening for these guys. What that creates is a mismatch where KD is going to have a smaller defender, whether it's Conley or Anthony Edwards, at like 6'3" to 6'5" on him. You can always ISO post up, and what you get from that is probably a double team and a kick out to a great shooter. Um, so I'm basically playing the mismatch game, and you and I talked about this in a previous podcast, Zach. A lot of the NBA playoffs comes down to matchups. So if you can force your hand, force the other team's hand of mismatches, they have to double down. They have to rotate. Gobert's going to be slow to rotate. Towns might be slow to rotate. They have a bigger team. So if you can force a mismatch and force a kick out opportunity and closeouts, you're going to have the advantage.
I think the thing that I like most about what you said is, I mean, it definitely. So first of all, it is definitely target ball. You know, like you're just trying to force matchups. You're trying to create mismatches so that you can go attack those in the playoffs because it is a much slower game. You got to play in the half court. You got to score in the half court. If you get transition points, that's gravy on top. But you got to be able to put the ball in the basket when the game is slowed down. But going back to the initial point, I think the thing that I like the most about that whole set of stuff you're talking about is forcing the mismatch with the Timberwolves by just putting five guards on the floor, five forwards on the floor, instead of trying to really play small ball center and leaning into having to play against a lineup of Gobert and Cat. Instead of leaning into that and trying to go big on big, just put five wings out there and say to Gobert and Cat, come guard the perimeter, come guard in space, come run the floor with us, and then hope you survive on the defensive boards, in the muck of everything to be able to outlast the two center lineup. I think that would be a great strategy.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think you make all those changes, and then Nas Reed comes in the game and drops 40 on you, so it's just whatever, you know.
And Anthony Edwards still too. I mean,
Right.
I told
Yeah.
Bender before we started doing this that I was just going to respond with, and then Anthony Edwards is going to score on anyone you put him on because he's Anthony Edwards in playoff mode. And I really do believe that. Last week on this podcast, I said that I thought this was going to be a coming out party for Anthony Edwards in this series because people have been talking about his record against the Suns and Devin Booker. I think Anthony Edwards really is out to prove a point in the series. He looked like that guy in game one.
And here's the other thing, like there's so much talent in the NBA, I could make all these adjustments in the world and they're still going to drop 40, right? So
Right.
the main focus of my thing was really force the ball out of Anthony Edwards' hands just because he is that guy. Um, there doesn't even have to be a ball screen. Like you could just rush a second guy at him just to force it out, which I don't think would be a bad idea either. But then, like Kyle said jokingly, but I'm actually not joking about this. Nas Reed can shoot the rock. Like Nas
No.
Reed is still a starting caliber 4 or 5 man coming off their bench. So I think he's the scary difference maker in the game plan because I'm forcing everybody else to beat us, but Anthony Edwards.
Yeah. We're not even talking about who's the guy that like plays like looks like he's playing in slow motion. Kyle Anderson.
He's injured. He might not be playing,
I
so
don't
we'll
know
see.
if maybe he comes back for some part of the series too, but that's a
Yeah.
key rotation piece as well that didn't even really play in game one because of that injury.
Mhm.
So Timberwolves are a deep team. They definitely have some depth there, and it's going to be a good series with the Suns. But like Bender said, it's the NBA, so
And that's
anyone
the
can
other
be
issue
tough for
too.
you.
The Suns don't have the same depth. They got rid of it all to trade for the big names. So that's where
Yeah,
you got to work with what you got, which is why I'm rotating all those guards in and trying to just play with the star power.
yeah. The best defender you can put on Anthony Edwards in that situation is Royce O'Neal, and Royce O'Neal is a great perimeter defender, but I think that also says something that the best perimeter, like that's your guy that you're going to be like, oh, I'm bringing this guy off the bench. Like his assignment is going to go be Anthony Edwards, hand holder throughout the game. It's Royce O'Neal. It's like,
Yeah. However, I want to agree on that, but however, I want to go the opposite direction and say the best defense you can play on Anthony Edwards is a double team because you're forcing him to make a different play.
right, which doesn't
The
matter.
one-on-one he's gonna get at some point, but you don't want that all the time.
All right, and with that, I think we'll wrap up this episode of Life in the Stands. Thanks again for listening and watching. Remember to like and subscribe on all the different platforms that you could be watching on, and we'll see you on the next episode.